So part of our class, one of our tasks is to figure out. We've been given a sum of money, and we are been instructed to kind of figure out how to distribute this money to nonprofits and organizations that we think are doing good work. And I wanted to ask you. So part of it is trying to choose, right? And I wanted to ask you how you chose this community of Guatemala to work with specifically, because part of what we're deciding right now is, should we go sort of more internationally? Should we focus on something local? Should we do something that we are really passionate about? Or should we try and maybe maximize the good that we can do somehow, even if we can even quantify, our good to begin with?
Yeah, I think you have a really tough job. In a way, my job is easier because the community chose me. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just serendipitous. It wasn't that I went out and did research. Okay, where am I going to go? I barely spoke Spanish when I started, so it wasn't that. It wasn't a love of Latin America, but do I tell the long story?
Sure.
Okay.
In 2 minutes.
Oh God. I was on the board of Dave Matthews. His sister worked for me. He lived in Charlottesville. Now he lives in Seattle. But his sister worked for me, and when he got to be famous, he formed a foundation, and they asked me to be on the board. It was through that I found out about a young guy from San Mateo Yucatan who had a huge growth on the side of his head. And I'll tell you the longer story later. But the first time I went to San Mateo was to take him back to his town. And that's when I fell in love with it. And it really did just, I'd had these machinations in my soul or in the back of my head or something saying, find something else. But when I got there, we thought he was going to die. We had tried to find treatment for him in Costa Rica.
How old was he?
He was 34. Yeah, 34, and they couldn't fix him in Costa Rica. Later, he came to New York and lived with my husband and me for 10 months. And we would go up to New York. We live in Virginia, so we'd go to New York and had these treatments, and David Matthews paid for all of it.
How much was that?
$369,000.
Wow.
A lot of money. And he paid it. When I came back from Costa Rica, we talked, and he said, I'm sorry, that didn't work out. And I said, well, I brought back the MRI and the angiogram, so I'm going to try to find a doctor here. And he said, well, if you find one, I'll pay for it. So it was just like that. I didn't even have to ask. He's incredible. But it was a lot of money. But when you think about how it got where it took.
And did you find a doctor?
Found a doctor. At Beth Israel in New York, who's a Mexican man named Alejandro Berenstein, whose parents had fled Poland as young. They had flown, escaped the Nazi menace as children and met in Mexico. And he looked at me when I first met him, and he said, I think I can fix your friend, but I may be the only person in the world that can. Which I don't think that's
But he
but
did.
he did. He thought it was true. And he did fix Sebastian. And so Sebastian's home now.
And he actually has been engaged in the foundation at some point.
He has been. Yeah,
How many years ago was that?
that was 12. 12 years ago. And it was while he was in my house that I found out that there had never been a high school. I had figured I would do some kind of women's crafts thing, because that's sort of what I do. But I don't know what we were talking about, and he kind of casually mentioned that they never had a high school, and I said, really? Do you think they would like one? Like that, and so he called down, and we had 8 phones in San Mateo at the time, 8. There's a town of 10,000 people. And there are all these community phones. Anyway, he called, and 2 weeks later, I got this official petition. So that's what happened. It was then I thought, well, I have to do it. I didn't know anything about education. I didn't know anything about nonprofit work. I really didn't know anything, except that this had been asked of me. Maybe that's what it took to be asked.